What's up, team? This is Ro, your best friend at JMSB. So here I was asked a question for COMM 308, Introduction to Corporate Finance. Let's have a look. So here it says, the expected return on the market portfolio is 12%, the standard deviation of the return on that portfolio is 18%, and the risk-free asset has a return of 6%. There are only two risky assets in this market with the following parameters. We have asset A and asset B. Their market expected returns are 15 and 10% each, along with their standard deviations, and we're also offered their beta coefficients. Assuming that the capital asset pricing model should hold, which of the following statements is correct? The market is in equilibrium, asset B is overpriced, in equilibrium we expect asset A to have a lower price, in equilibrium we expect asset B to have a higher price, or none of the above. By quickly glancing at these responses, it should be pretty obvious that we're asked to determine whether or not asset A and B are fairly valued based on the capital asset pricing model. In order to do that, we're simply going to calculate the CAPM-based return for each asset by applying the equation of the capital asset pricing model. And that's simply beta times RM minus RF plus RF. So we should be familiar with this equation. So the idea is to plug in the values for beta and RM and RF that are offered in the problem, and to calculate the capital asset pricing model's return for each of these two securities, or the benchmark return. So if we were to do that, we'd calculate an expected return for A of 15%, and for asset B it would be 8.4%. So all I've really done here is I've plugged in the values for the betas that are offered, and I've plugged in the RM and the RF that was offered. Notice that we did not need the standard deviation of the market portfolio simply because we're using the CAPM model, which uses beta as the relevant measure of risk. And now that we've done that, we can compare the market expected return of each asset to the benchmark return. Notice how asset A has a market return of 15% and an expected return of 15%, implying that asset A is a fairly priced asset. For asset B, on the other hand, the market is expecting a return of 10%, which is higher than the benchmark return of 8.4%. And for that reason, we can argue that asset B is an underpriced asset. And now that we know that asset B is underpriced, we should be able to realize that the demand for asset B is going to rise. And that's simply because investors are going to want to buy undervalued securities. As the demand for asset B rises, we would expect the price of asset B to rise until its return is reduced and it plots back on the SML. So to help you visualize what we've just calculated, we can actually plot the security market line for this economy where we have the market portfolio, the risk-free asset, and the two risky assets. And it should be obvious to us that asset B is plotting above the SML, and that's simply because it's offering more return than what the market would have to offer for the same amount of risk. And so since it's plotting above the SML, we can argue that this asset is a undervalued asset. And so with that logic, the best response here, in my opinion, would be response D. In equilibrium, we expect asset B to have a higher price than its current market price. So I hope that explanation helps, and if it does, make sure you tag your friends that are taking COMM 308 and share this video in other groups. In the meantime, guys, keep well, study well, Ro out.